This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi everyone, Rusty back here with your latest Meteo Mundo forecast. I hope you're having a great Saturday. Goodness gracious, is there a lot to talk about here for us, friends. You know, when I was putting this forecast together, I thought we were going to be talking a little bit about Tammy. I thought our main focus was going to be on this potential development in the Caribbean that could impact places like Jamaica. And certainly we're going to be highlighting the excessive rainfall potential continuing for Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and portions of the Leeward Islands. But lo and behold, we have a new invest that we have to talk about. And I mentioned this in the forecast from yesterday that there was the possibility that North American model was trying to spin something up off of this trough, which was bringing the heavy rain. Well, now we've got a new invest, so you can just throw the calendar out the window. This is a log jam, a traffic jam, if you will, happening right now in the Caribbean and the western side of the Atlantic. So we're going to start right now with what's happening with this yellow area here from the Hurricane Center. Again, it cropped up basically late on Thursday. And as we get into it again, thank you for liking the video. We appreciate your Meteo Mundo family. So again, we have a broad area of disorganized showers and storms just sitting off of the Central American coastline. Doesn't look any better on this Saturday than it did yesterday at this time. But again, the opportunity as it moves into a more favorable environment as it moves to the north. Now, the Hurricane Center yesterday basically extended this potential development area north, and that's simply because they're not sure if this does spin up into a depression or a tropical storm, that it's going to do so by the time it reaches Jamaica. It might be a little bit farther north and longer in time. So that's why the extension of this yellow area that now includes the western sides of Hispaniola towards Haiti and the central and the eastern sides of Cuba. But obviously our friends in Jamaica still right in that center of potential development. Now, again, all of this is nothing more than potential right now, but regardless, we're going to see some pretty good moisture returning to the area. So let's take a look at that for you right now. I'm going to switch over to our GFS model here. Again, the wide shot to begin this. I'm going to throw this into motion for us here. And again, I'm going to extend this out into time by 5 days. We'll go 5 days out. And I want to, first of all, again, look at what's going to be happening through the Southern Caribbean. The GFS model yesterday was much more aggressive and actually spinning up a weak system. Again, I'll show you the wind profile coming up in a second, but today, at least on its current run, it's not really there, all right? It's a low chance of development regardless. I do expect more tropical moisture to be entering the Central Caribbean, so places like the Dominican Republic and Haiti and Cuba and Jamaica and the Cayman Islands are going to have a better opportunity for rain regardless of actual development, and you can see that. But again, the potential for development, at least a low end, is still there. Let me throw on the wind profile here from the GFS model, and if you go back to yesterday's forecast and you watch it here, you would see that there was a nice little spin up. It was small, it wasn't strong, but there was one that went right on the eastern side of Jamaica late tomorrow, Sunday, and into Monday. It's not there on the GFS model any longer, okay? So again, when you have these weak systems that haven't developed yet, it's no surprise at all to see these models going back and forth. So at this point in time, the GFS model really doesn't pick up on any actual development from this system. We'll take a look at the NAM model here just to give you another perspective, a different model that's running on this. And as this one develops, we might see a little bit more in the way of some wind lifting north, but nothing really wrapping up. So at this point in time, it's a very low end opportunity for an actual disturbance to really wrap up into a depression or a tropical storm. It's not zero though, so we'll monitor this as that kind of broad moisture area moves to the north. But again, regardless of development in this area, we're going to expect a better chance for rain for places like Jamaica starting tomorrow and especially into early next week. Okay, so that's the latest on that potential area of disturbance in yellow. Again, yellow means a low end chance. Now we have to talk about this new invest area here. So again, yesterday I showed you the North American model and I said, hey, do you guys see this spinning up just east of the Bahamas? Well, I'm getting the forecast ready today and I'm looking at this enhanced satellite imagery and go, well, it looks very, very interesting. And very short time ago here, we've got a new invest. The Hurricane Center has tagged this as 96L. Right now, pressure is 1,008 millibars. Maximum winds are just 29, and it's moving northwest at 16. But This was exactly what the North American model painted on yesterday, was basically a piece of this trough to break up, spin up, and move away. So we do have a few models that are running on this currently right now. Let me throw those on there for you. Again, not the entire model suite at this point in time, but you can see that general northwest track continues, and then most of the models begin to recurve it because we have another trough coming off of the United States East Coast. We're going to have southwest winds, which should shove that back up. And as a matter of fact, we can take a look here real quickly at the water vapor imagery here. I'm going to switch over to the upper levels. You can kind of see that. Notice all of this dry air that as this system tries to move north and west, it's going to run into, and eventually it's going to be southwest winds that should begin to pull this away. Now, this does not mean it's going to not at least indirectly impact the Turks and the Caicos in the eastern side of the Bahamas, but I don't expect a direct path as this gets moving to move into those islands. So let us take a look at what's going to be happening with the models here. So I'm going to switch over. I've got a huge rundown again. There's so much to get through. So if I'm looking down and making sure that I'm kind of following my rundown here, I want to switch over again. This is going to be, we'll start with the NAM model this time, okay? And I'm going to switch over to the reflectivity product here. And again, the NAM model yesterday was the one. Let me see if I can pick this back up. Sometimes it likes to do something funky when I switch here. Let's see if it decides to come back correctly. No, it's trying to show a different color table. So let me go real quickly over to the GFS, and hopefully when I switch back to the NAM model, it will behave a little bit better and show the proper color table. So I'm going to go back 5 days on the GFS, okay? Now the GFS had absolutely nothing yesterday. Today, it actually does try and keep this somewhat organized as it moves off towards the east. Now, again, it does quickly kind of merge with that trough. It becomes more of an elongated system and moves back as just kind of a rainmaker towards Bermuda. So at this point in time, no real direct threats to the Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas and the United States East Coast. But again, we have an invest out there that we have to keep an eye on. I'll throw the wind product on this for you. And again, yesterday, the GFS model had absolutely nothing. You can see it's broad, it's disorganized, nothing really wraps up, and the winds don't really get that strong at all. And those are even gusts right now in the GFS model. Really, some of the winds coming in with the front into mid next week might be a little bit stronger than even what that's wrapping up into. Let me see if the NAM model will cooperate now and actually show the correct color table. There we go. Again, sometimes the system just hiccups from time to time. Now let's get to the NAM model. This one again is a little bit tighter. There's not a ton of a wind field there, and even it kind of quickly merges with that trough off the U.S. East Coast. But again, interesting to note, I would expect there to be a little bit more in the way of rain on the NAM model for portions of the Turks and Caicos, and especially the eastern side and the northern side of the Bahamas out of that NAM model. But again, it's nothing that gets too strong anytime soon. We'll watch it for you here, but it will kick up the surf and sea conditions for sure. And I can show you one more model here for our friends of the Bahamas. This is going to be our high resolution HRRR model. I'm going to put this into motion for you here and kind of zoom into the northwest side of the Bahamas. And you get the picture again that as this invest gets a little bit closer, it certainly is going to be throwing very breezy east to northeast winds across the Bahamas. And we're going to see the rain pick up. These will be quick, wind-driven showers at this point in time, not concentrated enough where I expect any real rainfall issues as far as any flood problems for places like Nassau and Authorstown up towards Freeport and Lucaya and Walker's Key and Bimini. Again, not expecting that, but it's going to be a very breezy time as we get into the early part of the week, and we'll continue with some very brisk east to northeast winds. So that's kind of the latest on that new invest. Again, it literally just cropped up here shortly before I started this forecast, and I'll keep a close eye on that for you. Now, the other big story, obviously, is going to be the rainfall potential that continues to be the excessive rainfall potential for portions of Puerto Rico, the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands, and the Leeward Islands. I again mentioned it yesterday that it would be a very elongated moisture axis from north to south, and where that moisture axis set up is where we would continue to see the highest rainfall potential. Right now, at least as of this Saturday, it's slightly east of Puerto Rico. We have seen some good rain, some downpours from time to time through the Virgin Islands. We've also seen some impressive rainfall in portions of the northern Leeward Islands as well, from Anguilla down towards places like Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, and Antigua and Barbuda as well. And that moisture plume does extend farther off towards the south. So these same areas that I mentioned yesterday, still under the gun, if you will, for the potential for some heavier rainfall as well. So let me go back over again to the GFS model, and then we'll zoom into those areas here. We'll start off in Puerto Rico area. And again, we'll go to the GFS model. We'll take it out 5 days. We continue with the flood watch as well for Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. And I'll have some details on all of that coming up as well. But let's start off with what the GFS model shows. Now, one little sliver of decent news is that the GFS model is beginning to be a little bit more progressive and trying to take this moisture axis and move it west as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday. I still expect heavy rain to develop in this area, especially the rest of Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, but hopefully we begin to move this off towards the west. And that, of course, will be the same situation for the Leeward Islands as well. You can see as we get into, tomorrow and into Monday and early on Tuesday, still the opportunity for some heavier rain, but there's not as much in the way of heavy rain now on this model on Wednesday. So hopefully, look, some of the models are trying to keep this heavy rain event in all the way through the end of next week. Hopefully it's a bit more progressive as of now. Let's take a look at the potential rainfall totals here. And again, this is from the GFS model. Going to throw this into motion over the next 5 days. This is from right now over the next 5 days. It doesn't account for the rain that has already fallen. So this is basically what additional could fall in the area. I'll stop it. We'll take a look at some of the query points as well. And again, still looking at elongated north to south moisture axis. So it's going to be extremely area dependent. But let's zoom in right now to portions of Puerto Rico, San Juan down towards Ponce, Fajardo again. Not as much on the mainland, but we could still have some flash flooding issues, especially with some of the downpours. We've had some very windy conditions. Some of our friends who live in Puerto Rico have dropped that in the comments, and please do so. If you live in these areas, if you live anywhere in the Caribbean, you want to give us a weather report of what you're seeing, that's what this Meteo Mundo community is about. Drop that in the comments section, and while you're there, drop us a like and subscribe. We certainly appreciate it. And again, for the islands just off of Puerto Rico, Culebra, Esperanza, again, we're still looking at the potential for an additional 5-6 inches of rain. That kind of rainfall total on the model is true for the U.S. Virgin Islands, for St. Thomas, St. Croix, and St. John, and the same thing for the British Virgin Islands. So again, this is additional rain, and again, I can put on a couple of these points here just to give you an idea of what the model's showing. Down towards St. Croix, a little over 3 to 4, but that's pretty common in those areas. Now, for Anguilla and St. Martin, again, the model is about the same. It's about 4 to 5 additional inches of rain here. Same thing for St. Barthélemy and then St. Kitts and Nevis and Antigua and Barbuda. You get the idea that there will still be additional potential heavy rain in this area. In Barbuda, again, somewhere around, let's say, another 2 inches of rain over the next 3 to 5 days. And as I get a little bit farther south, it's still the same situation here through the rest of the Lesser Antilles. Look, the model's showing 5 inches of rain in Martinique and Dominica, maybe 2 to 3 inches of rain. Again, I don't want you to focus on the individual number, but when we look at the overall swath of heavy rainfall, the model's still painting on a solid 3 to 5 inches of rain in most areas. So because of that, let's talk about the flood watch that's still in effect right now. This is from the National Weather Service office in San Juan. So for Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, that continues until Monday morning. Locally, 3 to 6 inches of rain, maybe a maximum of 8 inches in a couple of areas. That would be total from what's already fallen to what could potentially fall by Monday morning. And obviously the impacts are going to be some urban areas that could flood roads, streams, even rivers going over their banks, and then mudslides in some of the higher terrain as well here. So getting back to this, I do want to also mention, by the way, again, the National Weather Service office in San Juan only services Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. There were different flood advisories in effect for areas. So there was a flash flood warning for the British Virgin Islands, but that has been expired as of noon Atlantic Standard Time on Saturday. There was a flash flood watch for Anguilla that expired noon on Saturday, and a flash flood advisory for Antigua, Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis that expired noon on Saturday. Only the Weather Service office out of San Juan, Puerto Rico extended a long duration flood watch for the Virgin Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. So again, for those other areas, the British Virgin Islands and the Northern Leeward Islands, you got to check in with your local officials if they've extended any flood advisories, watches, or warnings out farther in time, okay? So I'm giving you the information that I have currently, but again, all of those outside of Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands expired at noon on this Saturday. But again, check in with the local officials, and as I do more forecasts, I get more new information, I'll certainly pass that along. For the rest of the islands, again, we're going to have some decent rainfall potential for Barbados and Grenada and Trinidad and Tobago. It's not going to be as concentrated. The rainfall totals aren't going to be as significant there, but still a couple of inches of rain could fall in that area as, again, that moisture axis moves off towards the west. So the best opportunity, again, will be the rest of Saturday, Sunday, and into Monday, and hopefully some of that rain shifting off towards the west after that. I know some of you guys could really use this rain. And as we look towards the ABC Islands, it'll be a little bit drier to begin with, but as that moisture moves west in the Caribbean, now you start to get a better chance for some rain, and now your opportunity for some heavier downpours and, again, locally higher rainfall totals will begin to come your way Tuesday and especially Wednesday into Thursday. For Aruba and Bonaire and Curacao, we'll see the potential to get you some better rain chances as we get into mid next week. For the Dominican Republic and Haiti on Hispaniola there, it's the same situation kind of. Again, the moisture stays to the east of you over the weekend, but as this slowly progresses off towards the west, you're going to see some higher rain chances in places like Punta Cana and Santo Domingo and Port-au-Prince. Again, not expecting any way of any flooding issues in that area as of now. I'll be monitoring the situation, but again, hopefully as we get past Monday, everything becomes more progressive and moves quicker, so we're not sitting that heavier rain over one area so long. All right, so that's the latest on the rainfall potential in those areas that I mentioned. I have to also just get into what's happening with Tammy right now. And luckily, there's not a lot to talk about. Tammy still is a tropical storm, but it does not look very impressive on satellite imagery. It's moving away from Bermuda, will kind of spin around and then eventually get absorbed. Not really expecting Tammy to be a problem to anyone else, but it's out there, so I wanted to mention it. So again, wrapping up this video, some of the areas that we'll be watching, this potential disturbance, low chance of development in the southern Caribbean, headed towards places like Jamaica and potentially Haiti. But again, if nothing else, more tropical moisture will bring a better chance for rain late in the weekend and early in the week. We have Invest 96L moving north into the west. We'll be watching the Turks and the Caicos of the Bahamas. Again, doesn't look to spin up into anything significant, but it will bring some breezy conditions and some rain to those areas. And then speaking of the rain, we still have that high rainfall potential for portions of Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands and portions of the Leeward Islands over the next several days, at least through Monday. So again, we are live streaming here at Meteo Mundo as well. Look for that in the live tab. It will give you live, up-to-date information on everything that I just mentioned: live radar, live satellite data, live updated tracks from the Hurricane Center. And if they change any of these areas of interest, you'll see that update live. So look for that in the live tab. And of course, I'll keep you updated with these forecasts as well. Thank you so much for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing. If you want the latest forecast to keep up to date with everything happening, we appreciate you, and we'll see you back here shortly next time right here at Meteo Mundo.